A completely different woodland adaptation called the Mississippian culture spanned most of the forested eastern side of North America, with Texas making up the southwestern frontier. It was a tradition that transformed the archaic hunter-gatherers into city and village dwellers. It saw the development of ceramics, a dependence on agriculture, and the stratification of society into at least a working class and an elite king or priest class. This culture distinguished itself from the Western woodland adaptation by the practice of building mounds for the burial of the dead, a highly unique and distinctive feature resulting in one of the first transcontinental religions. Around 200 AD, the revolutionary ideas of the Mississippian culture began filtering into East Texas. The mound builders in Texas were called the Caddo and were part of a large Caddo nation. Besides building mounds, the Caddo constructed large beehive-like homes. At Caddo and Mound State Historic Park, archaeologists are reconstructing one of these homes. Archaeologist Bob Stiles is supervising the reconstruction.
What we're doing here is we're recreating what we think would be a replica of a Caddo house about 1100 AD. This site is quite significant in that this is the southwesternmost mountain center known as the Mississippian pattern. So these people were definitely out on the wild frontier.
Like all members of the Mississippian culture, the Caddo were excellent farmers. They made tools out of stone, wood, and bone. They used these tools for clearing the land of trees and for planting and harvesting crops of beans and squash, but predominantly corn. The surplus foods they grew could then be traded for other items like flint, which was in short supply locally. The Caddo were very successful traders and must have had excellent skills for managing their surplus. As a result of these food surpluses and their management of them, the Caddo had the time and resources for social, artistic, and religious activities. The most interesting of these involved the still visible large funeral mounds. A mound would be built up over hundreds of years and contain the remains of the elite class and splendid artifacts. The first people interred in the mounds were buried below ground. Then, as other prominent people died, the burial space was mounded over, providing a new area for the dead. Workers would bring the dirt in baskets from nearby quarry pits outside of the village perimeter. In time, the mound could rise to a level of 20 feet. Over 80 dead were found in this mound. Some of the most exquisite objects found in the burial mounds are effigy pipes like this, thought by some archaeologists to have been intended for use in the afterlife. From 1300 to 1700, a rapid cultural decline took place. Every group in the Mississippian culture, including the Caddo, ceased their 2,000-year-old practice of building funerary burial mounds. The vast trading network gradually disappeared. Archaeologist Bob Stiles has an idea about what happened.
About 1276, 1277, there was a vast drought across the Southwest, and these people had no choice. They had to leave the site. They had to go to the headwaters areas where there were seep springs, where there was some constant water. And I think that changed their culture. It destroyed the hierarchical organization of their society. And once they got to those headwaters areas and had adapted to horticultural practices there and had adopted a more egalitarian society, then the structure of the society changed, and they didn't go back to the old way of doing things, even though the climate changed and it became more mesic and the rivers flowed again. They had adapted to that new way of life, and that's how they were found in 1690 when the Spanish rode up and started writing at length about them.
The Spanish met a tribe of Caddo called the Tejas. Eventually, the land of the Tejas became Texas, and this is how Texas got its name. But in the 1850s, the last Caddo were driven out of Texas to share a reservation in Oklahoma with another Texas tribe, the Wichita. Now only 2,000 Caddo remain, but they will be remembered as an advanced culture which lived in peace for over 500 years. A great accomplishment for any people. Today, near the old Caddo Mounds, is a reservation occupied by the Alabama Coshada, two tribes whose ancestors were undoubtedly parts of the great Mississippian woodland tradition. The original home of the Alabama Coshada was the state of Alabama. In the early 1700s, the tribes had contact with French explorers, and by the mid-1700s, they were being pushed westward. By the late 1700s, they were arriving in Texas. The Alabama Coshada enjoyed a favorable relationship with Sam Houston in Texas, and remained largely neutral during the Indian Wars in the region. They were the first group of Indians to be given land for a reservation in Texas, and once they were, they built houses like those of the European and American pioneers.
The Alabama Coshadas are two separate but related tribes, and they're also known as Southern Woodland Indians. The types of homes they would live in long ago is the log cabin, and the log cabins were made from the loppy pine trees. What they would do before they would have any nails, they would just trim them at the ends to make them fit together. And the air clay is made for the chimney, which is packed in between the wooden splits. And the cabins will only have one doorway, no windows.
Corn played a central role in the great Mississippian cultures. The Alabama Coshada still carry on some of the ancient practices.
Okay, we have two native foods. One is called softy. Softy is made from a dry corn, and they place the dry corn to this hollow log. They get another pod, and they will start crushing the corn. And the heavy layer would be on top, so it would added weight, so it'd be easier to crush the corn. Once the corn is crushed, they would then place it into these powder baskets. What this would do is sift out the different sizes. And the larger size of the corn that is crushed would then be used to make the softy, and it's cooked outdoors in a large kettles, and it takes about 3 to 4 hours. Once it's done, it would take something similar to hominy. We also have another type of food which is called Indian fried bread. Long ago it was only made from the cornmeal and hot water, but instead of using this cornmeal today, we use the flour, salt, baking powder, and warm water. They mix the ingredients together, make it into a dough. Once the dough has been risen, they will take a small piece of it, flatten it out by hand, and then fry it in this hot grease. And once it will turn golden brown on both sides, the fried bread is ready to eat.
Today, the Alabama Coshada are small in number, but they are expert foresters, and their reservation is a wonderful recreational area and tourist attraction.